Welcome to the Shock Your Potential podcast, where we focus on creating positive, productive, and profitable workplaces. I am your host, Michael Sherlock. I am a leadership and sales expert, best known for being serious about business, despite what you may think by my appearance of often very colorful hair and sometimes crazy shoes. My guests bring a wealth of information that will support your career and your business, along with many pearls of wisdom to support balance in your personal and professional lives. Listen in as I have another amazing conversation with a guest who will certainly shock your potential. Arie Brish is a cross-functional expert in growth strategies, commercializing innovation, change leadership, and turnarounds. He's also the best-selling author of this book. Wait until you hear this name because I love it. Lay an Egg and Make Chicken Soup. And he often speaks about the book, which I know we're going to ask about throughout the episode today. He also brings a lot of great practices from projects in a lot of different industries across many, many disciplines. But here's just a couple of his, things that he's really done that stand out. He's scaled business unit revenue from a $288 million organization, taking it to $710 million in 4 years, and also taking their market share from number 4 to number 1. He's also executed multiple turnarounds, led a major profit improvement project of a $200 million business unit that achieved 24% gross margin improvement in 2 years. And boy, we know that that makes a significant difference to the bottom and the top line. And as he said when we were talking before we hit go, is that he, maybe he sounds wonderful, but maybe he's just really good writing his bio. But I think he really has a lot to bring to the table. So I can't wait to pick his brain. Arie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Michael.
And I love seeing your book behind you. So we'll make sure to talk about that as well. But tell us a little bit. I had just a couple of the highlights from your bio, which is really incredibly impressive. But tell us in your words a little bit about you, your business, and how you help people to shock their potential.
I grew up in Israel, went to school in Israel, started my career working for American technology companies, and that was back in 1975 or so. My degree was in electrical engineering. In Israel, once you graduate, you go to work for one of the electronic or electrical local companies. Most of them were government-owned at the time, so it was stable job. And then a Silicon Valley company called National Semiconductor decided to open an R&D center in Israel. Out of adventurous, I would say, I said, okay, I'll interview for the job. Basically, the rest is history. People today perceive marketing as search engine optimization and lead management and things like that. But really, if you think about it, the marketing starts when you define what business or what product you're going to go into. Because the product is the exchange point between the supplier and the customer. The supplier give you a product, you pay back the supplier. So that's kind of the borderline between all the logistics that makes the product and the customer that need it. So this is kind of the exchange point.
Yes, that it really truly is, because if you're really thinking about either the business or your product or both, you have to think about the customer, and therefore that is the beginning of true marketing.
Right. Yes, exactly. And in some startups, especially in Israel, going back to Israel, the mentality is first design the best product that in the world, and then we'll worry about it will be so good that people will buy it just because it's so good. So first about the name. In business, you always, when you start a business, there is a chicken and an egg dilemma. Okay, right. I want to start a business, kind of feel right, but I need to do some market research. So should I spend $100,000 on market research? That's a lot of money to spend if you're not sure. So it's kind of a catch-22.
Right.
But you have to do it. It's like, I'm based in Texas now, oil exploration. You don't just drill in the ground. You do some research in the location, spend a little money to get some the probability of success, no matter how sure you are about the future is never 100% predictable. So you have to invest money to kind of clear the fog a little bit, but it's still foggy. And that's the product planning part of any business, or the market research part of to start any business or start a new product in an existing business.
As you were talking, I was thinking about how, right before we started taping, and we were talking about my adventure last year, being a part of a presentation for one of my clients to venture capitalists and angel investors in the tech space. And that those couple days where we were doing that presenting, it was all with Israeli-owned businesses, we're looking for partnership in the U.S. And when you said that sometimes, you want to build a product that's so great, we'll figure out how to market it later. You're absolutely right. I mean, the things that I saw coming out of that conference were just mind numbing. I mean, they were just amazing technologies, but I kept saying, well, how are you going to market this? What's your strategy? And almost to a fault, to one, people are like, well, I don't know. That's, well, that's why we're here, to get investors to start marketing. But I spoke with one gentleman, and we were talking about, so he works with, he creates games, all these online games. And he said, every time I release another game to the world, I say, I'm done with games. Like, I'm not going to do another game. He goes, but we're so good at it. We're so good at it, and we're so good at getting it in the hands of people who like to play those games. He goes, I get, I come up with an idea, and I'm like, next thing you know, I'm doing it, and then I'm selling it. And his company, they were asking for the least amount of money of all of them, because he's like, look, we just, we know the process. We know how to get it out there all the time. And it was fascinating to me to see that. And now that you've shared this story a little bit about, that kind of concept, it makes me laugh to think of how many businesses, no matter where they are in the world, think, well, I got a great idea. So it's such a great idea that people will just be at our door magically once we release it to the world. And that just doesn't happen.
Yeah. So one of the chapters in the book, speaking about great ideas, one of the chapters in the book is called "Better to be different than to be better." And you can have the greatest product, greatest, like in the technology. People in the technology industry makes this mistake a lot, because they think, okay, the more technologically advanced my product is, the better it will sell, because it's so great, right?
Right.
But then, a year or two later, 5 other competitors coming with another great technology that competes well with your great technology.
Yeah.
So that the trick is to find a differentiator angle in the product that is not necessarily the technology. It could be the business model. It could be, I don't know, different angle that nobody thought about. I call it orthogonal differentiation. Orthogonal is, if you have like XY, orthogonal is the Z angle. So if everybody competes on the XY plane, you have to create a Z vector that nobody thought about. So you create a situation where on this one Z feature in your product, nobody can compete, because you are the only one.
Yeah.
So that's one in the product definition. And then when you launch a product, make this Z thing the one thing that nobody can live without.
And I think that has to do with not even just products, but services also.
Yeah.
And I think about, how many people do coaching and consulting or speaking. And I remember when I was first kind of establishing myself as a speaker, and people are like, well, what makes you different than any other leadership speaker? And at first I was like, well, I don't know. And then I was like, wait, I make it different. Not just my experience, but I am memorable. I encourage people to talk and engage. And I can guarantee you, when I go and speak on leadership or sales, nobody forgets me. And that means that my messages will resound with people, and they will recall more things. And so when I became really comfortable with that, then I really, not only did my confidence, boost with that, but my bookings, increased, because people said, oh, she does stand out differently, and she looks different, and she talks differently, and she interacts differently. And I think that there's a lot of people, I
She
just
has a
interviewed
different
some.
name.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that means that it's going to stick. And I
Yes.
just was interviewing somebody for this series as well, who does, coaching for people, but she focuses on coaching families to see how families can, basically make their business as a family affair and teach children, entrepreneurship and things. And after talking to her, I was like, that's just really brilliant, because you're probably not doing it, things much differently than a lot of other coaches, but you found that niche, your Z, and you're
Exactly.
driving that Z all the way out.
Yeah, exactly. So you may lose some parts of the market, but the segment that really need your Z, you'll have 80% market share in that segment.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit more about your book. Like what prompted you to write this book? And, if people listening, who would want to read this book? But, who's going to say, oh my gosh, that's exactly the book I need to pick up right now?
Okay, so we'll start with the second part of your question. The target audience for the book are either first-time CEOs, first-time angel investors or venture capitalists, and first-time executives in larger companies. When I say first time is because I think after you are 20, 30 years into your career, in many cases, the book doesn't add anything. There are two types of careers. One path is people that specialize in one particular specialty, and they do it all their career, and they become so good at it. Especially in the technology, you see in the technology space, you see people that they're just excellent in this one thing they know how to do, and they don't care about all the other disciplines around them. So the book is not so much for these people. The book is more for people that manage a business, general management that needs to manage the marketing and the finance and the sales and the technology and HR and everything. So the unique thing about the book, or the Z thing about the book, is it covers everything a CEO needs to know. Okay, so there is a chapter about each discipline. So basically, in one book, you save yourself from buying 20 books.
Very
The
good.
difference is the other 20 books are maybe going very deep in one discipline. My book is one chapter. There is so much you can cover in one chapter per discipline. The other, I made it try to make it very industry agnostic. So
Good.
my examples are, spoke about gaming. There is gaming examples, there is jewelry examples, there is liquor examples, there is aviation examples, obviously technology from my own experience. So, and the reason I did it, you can learn from different industries. Okay, you no matter what industry you are, you bump into a challenge that you never had before. But somebody in totally different industry may had the same challenge 15 years ago, and you can learn from how they addressed it. So every chapter has 2 or 3 examples. So I start every chapter with kind of 1 or 2 pages of presenting the topic, and then few real life examples from real life businesses. And the examples I have, like I cover over 25 industries. Also very global, because the same thing in different countries. We talked about your experience. In different countries, there is different business cultures and different challenges to the businesses. So you can learn from those examples as well. So the book is very diverse from both the industries and the globalization.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad we got to dive into it a little bit. Before I get into the question of the series, I just want to ask one more question about your book, because I love speaking with authors just to ask them this question: what made you decide you wanted to write a book?
I never did. So
okay then.
Yeah, going back to your previous question. So in the past several years, I volunteered as mentor in different accelerators, incubators, and schools. And what I realized with many young entrepreneurs, and including myself, 30, 40, 50 years ago, you don't know what you don't know. So you finish your school and whatever your degree is, and then you start to work. and all the different disciplines to make it successful were totally foreign for you. So most young entrepreneurs, the from 100,000 feet level, the I wouldn't call it mistake. It's not a mistake. It's just they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
the purpose of the book is kind of open their eyes on everything they need to know. Okay. After you read the book, you find a chapter. Okay, my finance knowledge is so bad that I need to buy a book in finance.
Yes.
So maybe they'll buy a book in finance. But the intention of the book is to kind of present to them the big picture thing.
Yes. And then allow them to see where they want to dive down deeper.
Right. And so that's what triggered. So I started to write notes after I had all these mentorship sessions, and slowly I realized that the challenges repeat themselves. They're all kind of facing the same thing. And after I accumulated different notes and blogged on LinkedIn and what have you, many months later, I realized I have so much material. Maybe if I'll put it together, it could make a book.
Very good.
So
I love
put
it.
them together. So it took me maybe 2 years to write it, but only the last 2 or 3 months triggered the idea of maybe I should make it a book, not just blog here and there.
I love it. I've spoken to a lot of people that's how they created their first book or business book, especially. So, Ari, this month, the whole theme of the month is talking about the magic of marketing. Because I say, wouldn't it be wonderful if we had some magical marketing pixie dust and we could sprinkle it on our businesses and they would automatically generate leads and customers who will throw money at us? It would be wonderful, but that doesn't happen. So instead, I've asked each of my guests to share a couple top tips for how people can really enhance or make better use of their marketing. So what are your thoughts on this subject?
Number one, marketing starts when you start to define the product. That's really important. The best new product is one that creates a market. Okay, so you are a monopoly, at least for the first few years. If you go back to 1980s, were you born then?
Oh, yes.
Chrysler came up with a minivan. Okay, today
yes.
you cannot even envision a suburban family without at least one minivan or one SUV, right? That's like a must-have.
Yes.
Back in the 80s, Chrysler were the first one. They did awesomely well for a few years because they were the only one with a minivan for several years.
Yes.
Then the market started to decline when new competitors started to come in, but the automotive market is so slow moving that they were a monopoly in the minivan market segment for several years. One of the things that slow large companies, there are two things slow innovation in large companies. One is they try to study to death the question.
Yes.
So one of the employees have a great idea, and then his management will send him go and study, go and do, and it takes a year or two before they even execute. The
Yes.
Chrysler minivan, it was almost 7 years because the management, somebody had this idea and the management didn't like it because it was so out of the box. So that's one slow factor in large companies. The other one that goes back to the marketing question. The other one is fear of cannibalism. In many cases, a new product cannibalize an older generation product. If you're in a large company with the same product line, just new generations of the same product.
Right.
So in many cases, I've seen it a million times. The management of the older product will fight against the new idea just because it will take away some of their business.
Yes.
So part of the marketing job is to control the phase out of the older generation while aggressively promoting the new generation. And that takes back to the Z factor we talked about. Create a differentiator in the new product that will set you apart totally from competition
Oh gosh, Arie, you and I could actually talk for hours and
Yeah,
hours and
yeah.
hours. Um,
Yes.
But we'll have to wrap it up here soon. But I know we'll have all your contact information in our show notes, including links to your book. But in case somebody wants to look you up right now and find you, what's the best way for them to find you?
Just look me up on LinkedIn. There is only the good thing about me, speaking about the Z factor, my Z factor, there is only one Arie Brish in the world. If you type my name, I am the only one that will come up with that name.
Excellent. So
Yeah.
before we go, Arie, do you have any last words of wisdom or pearls of advice for my listeners and viewers?
Just the Z factor is one very important thing since your focus is the marketing. The other thing we didn't get to talk about and the book covers is selling a new product is different than selling a mature product. And the book talks about what's the difference, what kind of incentive plans and compensation plans you need for new product salespeople versus mature product salespeople. So that's kind of another whole topic, a whole chapter in the book that for your audience may be relevant.
So absolutely true. Absolutely true. All right. Thank you so much for being my guest today. This was fascinating, and I am really glad we're connected.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Shock Your Potential podcast. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and like us today.